What's going on, guys? This is Rob, and if you're enjoying the content here on my channel, then make sure you hit the like button and make sure you hit subscribe so you can help decide what direction the content on my channel goes in the foreseeable future. Rob, was there ever a winner for that contest that you had on the video where Batman and the Justice League become Green Lanterns? Yes, guys, there was a winner. Here's the kicker. Here's something you got to keep in mind. The comments for that video, there were about 900 of them, and each of the oaths was about 4 or 5 lines long. So it took me about this long in order to really get through them all. But we have a winner. We have a winner. So the person who won is going to get a shirt with their oath on the back. I might just put like peace on the front. I'm not really sure. But of course, they also get to pick the next video. So Super Saiyan Sketch, send me a tweet, or I guess send me a message on YouTube. That'd be the best way to do it. Super Saiyan Sketch, send me a message on YouTube, and you get to decide what the video will be for our classic DC video. So again, I'm sorry it took so long, guys. It's just sorting through 900 comments is not something that I can do in a matter of days. It takes a while, and I actually had to bring a friend of mine on board to help me sort through them all. So it was very difficult to do. But for those of you guys who have been watching my videos on the Incredible Hulk so far, and those of you guys who are watching the Red Hulk videos and were kind of curious, what was the point of the Red Hulk? Why was he introduced? What's the basis behind him? Jeff Loeb gives us the answer to that question. Now keep in mind, the Red Hulk, or I guess Hulk as the series was titled, was designed to coincide and run alongside the Incredible Hulk, and it was just 2 different stories. The Incredible Hulk, as it was basically relaunched with issue number 600, dealt with Bruce Banner after he had been depowered, and the stories that were going on with regards to him fighting his son Scar. Hulk dealt with Red Hulk, so it was just giving us 2 different aspects of what was going on with 2 different characters, because again, they couldn't just get rid of Bruce Banner. I mean, Bruce Banner was like a namesake. We're seeing that backlash right now. The Incredible Hulk sales have never been lower since they got rid of Bruce Banner than they have been since at any other point in time. They're at their lowest, which is kind of weird. But what this does is this initially starts out with Domino. Now, the cool thing about this is Domino is one of these characters. She is like, I don't know. I mean, she's like the Punisher. She has a huge history. She was actually around, I think the Punisher came first, now that I think about it. But she's always in the background, but she's one of these characters that has her hand in everything. And in fact, in this story, we're going to touch back again with Silver Sable. And those of you guys who are old school Spider-Man fans will be familiar with Silver Sable. She is a classic character. She's really like the broker of information when it comes to the Marvel Universe. But Domino's really just kind of witnessing a meeting between Doc Samson and some other person. And we learn that this other person is basically the Red Hulk. Now, keep in mind, Jeff Loeb is still toying around with the idea of who is the Red Hulk. Now, the issue with this was that this story arc, the time it took from the time the Red Hulk first showed up until his identity was revealed took about 2 years. And as cool as it was, by the time the reveal of his identity came along, it was sort of wearing thin. And fans were like, look, we just really want to know what's going on with Red Hulk right now. Like, we're kind of tired of waiting. And so it was only a matter of time before it showed up. But, with Red Hulk seeing Domino, it's more or less, you're in the wrong place at the wrong time. And that's what this turns into. It just turns into a cat and mouse game between Red Hulk and Domino. Not just the 2 of them. Again, we see Punisher, Deadpool, Wolverine, X-23, a litany of characters that are involved here, but we'll also see the introduction of a new character, which actually comes out to be pretty interesting. But what he says is, I don't know what you think you saw, but you need to die. Now, the reason why is, and this is why I love Jeff Loeb's writing of Red Hulk in the story, is because it's a lot of inner monologue. It's a lot of inner monologue from Red Hulk. And what he says is that a secret identity is everything. Like, he needs to keep his identity protected. More so than that, he talks a lot about Bruce Banner. And that's why this story is so important. That's why I chose to do this story. We could have skipped over it, and then we could have just jumped directly into the Fall of Hulk's prologue, but I wanted to cover this because what Jeff Loeb does here is he says, okay, well, the Red Hulk first showed up and he was just beating people up. He was fighting Hulk. He stole the surfboard of the Silver Surfer, stole the Silver Surfer's powers, basically became the new Silver Surfer, where he did, all these really wild things, and he was fighting all these different people. In the end, or in the story, he basically comes to this recognition of what it was like being Bruce Banner. Now, the funny thing about this was that Red Hulk made it clear in no uncertain terms when he first showed up that he knew about Banner, that he was aware of who Banner was, and he hated Bruce Banner. The crazy thing about this was that, with this story, he basically comes to a level of respect for Bruce Banner. Now, the problem with this was that as he's going through and he was chasing down Domino, it led to the destruction of a massive amount of property. But in the fallout, it was basically, Doc Samson alongside General Thunderbolt Ross coming to Red Hulk and saying, look, you got to take care of this. This needs to be sorted out. One, because you're working for us. And so if Domino has your identity, then and that cannot be allowed to be made public, because if your identity is made public, then that means people can trace you back to us as an organization, and it'll result in our entire plans being blown open. Because remember, what Doc Samson and what General Thunderbolt Ross and what the rest of the intelligentsia are doing is very hush-hush. Now, we'll get more into them once we get into like Fall of Hulks, and we'll learn, you know, that Doctor Doom is involved in all this stuff. It's crazy how deep this goes. But a lot of this stuff was just kind of left very ambiguous when it all first started, when it was all launched. All we really knew was that Red Hulk was an agent of some organization out there. But what this story establishes, and especially once we start getting into things a little more in depth, is that Red Hulk had basically gone off the reservation. But the list that he's given isn't initially revealed to us. But what we do is we basically transition over to Deadpool. Now, I gotta say, having Red Hulk and Deadpool meet one another was amazing. Like, it was so cool. It was so fun to see, because I don't know about you guys, I can take Deadpool in like small pieces. I can take him in little bits. Like, I can sit down and read Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe, then I'll take a break for a few months. And then I can read Deadpool Illustrated, take a break for another few months, and it just goes in that fashion. I mean, I can't really take too much Deadpool too soon, because, you know, his slapstick comedy doesn't really resonate with me if I'm in the wrong mood. But to see contrasting dichotomies like this, to see Red Hulk, who's just powerful and angry, you know, basically going against Deadpool, who's just nonsensical, it's actually pretty funny. It works out pretty well. Now, of course, a lot of these here are life model decoys. This is something I want you to really keep in the back of your head, because later on, as we start getting into more videos, life model decoys are going to play a pretty significant role. But as we know, life model decoys, again, are basically just these, they're literally designed to look like people. For example, in Original Sin, we learned that over the course of the decades that we had been seeing Nick Fury in Marvel Comics, those were never the real Nick Fury. They were life model decoys. And the real Nick Fury was just hiding out in a satellite orbiting the Earth that no one knew existed. That's what they did with his character. Now, of course, he's back now. The original Nick Fury from Marvel Comics, the white guy, he's back now in Thor the Unworthy, which, if you are not reading Thor the Unworthy, you are missing out. Oh my God, dude, that's a fanboy. That story is so good. Oh my God. Jason Aaron, I love you, man. Like, the next comic convention I go to needs to have Jason Aaron, and I'm going to get Thor the Unworthy #1 signed by him. I'm sorry. I just really love the Thor run right now. I can't wait to get into the Thor series on this channel, because we're literally going to start with Ragnarok and just work our way forward. Like, that's what we're gonna do. But I digress. I get so excited, guys. I get so excited with this. But again, you know, what ends up happening here is Red Hulk makes some comments about Deadpool. One of the first things he says is he doesn't like working with guys whose loyalty can be bought. And the reason why is because they'll betray whoever it is they're working for if somebody else is willing to pay them more money. That's one of the reasons why a lot of legitimate, or I guess as close as you can get to legitimate organizations, won't really work with Deadpool, because he'll betray them in a heartbeat. Half of it's because he's insane, but the other half is because somebody else might pay more money. Now, with the character of Frank Castle, he's a little more concrete. And this is really kind of cool, because Frank Castle just has his own moral compass. The Punisher, in my mind, is one of the best characters in Marvel Comics. Sure, his stories always struggle, except for Punisher Max. Yes, they never really last a long time, and he usually ends up being relegated to a support character. For example, in the Civil War comic, when he saved Spider-Man's life and took him to Captain America, that was one of the greatest things, because then the comic revealed that he'd been secretly watching them all, and none of them knew that Punisher was keeping an eye on him. It just shows how capable he is as a guy. But what Red Hulk says here is that Frank Castle, having his own moral compass, is a guy who, you know, he basically lost his family and he decided to take out the world. But all he wants is to kill bad guys. That's all he wants. That's the only thing he wants to do. Anybody that makes it easier for him to do that is an ally. Anybody who gets in his way of doing that is an enemy. It's that clear cut and simple. And so what Red Hulk says is, he basically, as a Punisher, says, hey, look, man, what you want is to kill bad guys, and I will give you the shield files on every single criminal who's part of the witness protection program that you think deserves to die. Now, of course, the funny thing here, though, is that with their first encounter, because remember, this is the first time Punisher and Red Hulk are meeting, Punisher tries to kill him right off the bat. Now, Jeff Loeb gives us this for a couple reasons. The first is to show that the Punisher will just kill bad guys on sight. Now, this is something that most people know of, but not everybody who goes and cracks open a Marvel comic that has the Punisher really knows that much about him, especially like first-time readers. If people are familiar with him, they know that. But one of the things with the Punisher is he kills bad guys as soon as he sees them. That was covered in Civil War. That was one of the greatest moments. You literally had villains who went to Captain America and were like, hey, look, yes, we fought before, yes, we're bad guys, but we do not like the Superhuman Registration Act. We're siding with you, Captain America. And then the Punisher just sprayed him down with bullets. And it led to Captain America kicking his ass. It was a really, really cool moment, but it just showed us the Punisher kills bad guys on sight, quick, fast, and in a hurry. No questions asked. And that's one of the things that I love about his character so much. but it's really just, again, Red Hulk going around and effectively buying people's loyalty. Now, we also end up getting the Crimson Dynamo, which is basically kind of like Russia's answer to Iron Man. I always thought the Titanium Man was really more of, I think, Russia's answer to Iron Man, but this also creates a really cool thing, and I want to talk about this for a second because a lot of people have asked me about this before. The character of Colossus is key to understanding Russia's superhero program. So way back in the day, to kind of sidetrack from this coming for a second, way back in the day when the Avengers first showed up, when the Avengers first formed, Russia realized that they needed an Avengers team of their own. And so what they did is they started going around and kidnapping anybody in Russia that had superpowers and then forcing them to become part of Russia's super soldier program. I think it was called the Winter Guard. I'm not going to swear to that, but I feel like that was the name of it. But Colossus was originally supposed to be one of the people who was kidnapped. The issue is that Charles Xavier basically showed up and rescued him. Now, of course, that was in the updated origin of Colossus, which I think we covered in my video on Colossus Explained. You'll find that down in the description. But I just wanted to throw that in there for a second because I think that when it comes to superhero teams and organizations, things that go on outside of the US are usually kind of ambiguous to a lot of new fans. They're not really sure about it because, in truth, usually Marvel Comics just covers things that are going on in the US. Not only that, what Red Hulk says is he's basically brought all these guys together for the purpose of tracking down Domino. But the funny thing about this is that before they're even assembled, Electra pops up and says, I already found her. Now, this is huge. This is a really, really significant thing for Jeff Loeb to create. And the reason why I say that is because when it comes to the character of Electra, she's wildly undervalued in Marvel Comics. I mean, not in terms of writers, but in terms of a lot of readers. A lot of readers are like, yeah, the character of Electra, she had that really bad movie, right? I mean, that's usually what people say. Electra is one of the most important characters in Marvel Comics because she is an integral part of the criminal underworld. She's not as integral as Silver Sable, but she is a very important part of the criminal underworld. And her being able to find Domino right off the bat shows us her resources. It shows us how smart she is, but we're also going to find that she's going to be very, very important for Red Hulk, especially once we start getting into the end of this story and what it is that she values and what it is that she requests from him if he wants her aid in the future. Now, of course, once Domino is basically tracked down, we end up picking up with Red Hulk and them while they locate them, and we find out that Domino had basically secured Uncanny X-Force. Now, Uncanny X-Force really came out of the House of M, Messiah Complex, Messiah War, and what had happened here is Wolverine had basically formed his own team that would operate without anybody knowing they exist. That was the idea. No one was supposed to know that Uncanny X-Force existed. The general public wasn't supposed to know. Really, like the superhero community and S.H.I.E.L.D. weren't supposed to know. But it was operating behind closed doors, and I believe one of their first major missions was following Cable and Bishop. And what I mean by this is during the events of Messiah Complex and Messiah War, Hope Summers was the first mutant that was born after the House of M. That's why she's so important, is because when 98% of the mutant population lost their powers, there were no mutants being born. That was it. There were no mutants coming out. Most of the mutants lost their powers. We had 198 mutants, and that was it. Hope Summers being born changed all that. The issue was Bishop believed that Hope Summers was the person that caused his future by killing 1 million humans in the 6-second war. And so Bishop was trying to kill Hope Summers. Cable grabbed Hope Summers and started jumping into the future, and Bishop followed them. And so Cyclops went to Wolverine and said, go find Bishop and go find Cable. Go save Hope Summers. And so it led to this like 3-way chase where you had Cable running with Hope Summers, you had Bishop following Cable, and then you had Uncanny X-Force following Bishop. So it was a really cool situation that went on, and I think Comic Storian has Uncanny X-Force on his YouTube channel. I'll probably cover it at some point, maybe, I don't know, sometime next year, but usually Benny and I try to give ourselves some breathing room whenever we end up doing series that are similar. We try to give ourselves enough time to where we can do it, we'll have the interest, and then one of us can come along and do it in our own way and maintain the interest, so we try not to cut over each other. But this fight between Uncanny X-Force and the forces of Red Hulk are actually really, really cool here. The other half of this is that we get some interesting, again, inner monologue with Red Hulk. Now, this is really more action than anything else. There's not a whole lot of exposition here, but to see Red Hulk going against Wolverine, to see the Punisher going against X-23, to see Deadpool going against Warpath, you know, Thunder is still here, and Electra, just watching it all unfold is cool because remember, Electra is going to be in the background of almost all this stuff. The other half, though, is that Jeff Loeb gives us some exposition and some explanation on how these characters relate to one another, even if it's only by way of conflict. For example, Red Hulk is extremely intelligent. He's much smarter than Bruce Banner is, but it doesn't mean that he has the kind of experience that Wolverine has. Wolverine is smart. You know, Wolverine is a very capable fighter. He's very strategic. Red Hulk is also extremely strong. And so where Red Hulk physically gets the upper hand, Wolverine makes a smart choice by literally slashing his eyes and blinding him. And so that's one of the coolest things, is because we don't really know how Red Hulk's healing factor works. And in fact, Red Hulk even says this. He says, I don't know how long it'll take for my eyes to heal. Will they heal as fast as the Incredible Hulk? Will they heal slower? Will they heal faster than the Incredible Hulk? He doesn't really know how all that works. Now, Jeff Loeb basically says, it's slower because the Incredible Hulk's healing factor is almost instantaneous. It's extremely fast. It does kind of vary a bit depending on the writers, but on the whole, it's wildly fast. It's on par with Wolverine's, if not a little bit better, again, depending on who's writing the story at the time. But having Punisher go against X-23 was also extremely intriguing to me. And the reason why I say that is because X-23 was trained as an assassin. And to be honest, I wasn't really sure that I agreed with Jeff Loeb's handling of Punisher against X-23. With Laura Kinney, she was trained to kill. I mean, she was literally trained to be Wolverine, you know, trained to execute people. The Punisher is effectively able to get the upper hand by impaling her. The problem that I have with this is that X-23 should have been able to make mincemeat out of the Punisher easily. I love Frank Castle. Frank Castle, I love you to death, man. I mean, he's John Bernthal. It works out well. You know, I feel like there's no way he should have been able to get the upper hand here. That's just my personal thing here. But what also happens is, remember, Electra's playing the smart game. She's just watching all this. And so in the ensuing conflict with everything that's going on, she ends up attacking Domino and says, I want to know what you know. My question is this: if Red Hulk is assembling a team of Punisher and Deadpool and Thundra and a handful of other people whose loyalty can just easily be bought with information or money, then I want to know why they're here and why they're chasing after you, because you're Domino. You're small time at best. You know, you've been around for a while, but you're small time. Why is he hunting for you? That's the question that needed to be asked. That's the question that Deadpool and Punisher and all those guys should have asked, is why? Why are we going after them? The problem with this is that, again, Red Hulk is still blinded here, and so his sight is kind of being guided by Thundra as she's telling him what's going on and that Wolverine's trying to attack him again. But where Wolverine steps in and prepares to deal the killing blow, he's taken out from behind, and we're basically joined with Red She-Hulk. Now, I've been looking forward to this. I've been looking forward to making a video about Red She-Hulk because Red She-Hulk is really, really cool. She's really intriguing. She's really more violent and she's more angry, but she adds a whole new dynamic here because we have She-Hulk. I mean, we have Jennifer Walters. It's not like Jeff Loeb's doing anything new by having a female version of the Hulk, but Red She-Hulk is her own character. She's aggressive, she's intelligent, she's smart. I mean, it really works out well. Not only that, Red Hulk doesn't know who she is or where she came from. Something else that I also hope you notice here is she's basically wearing a hulked out uniform of Domino. And so what it looks like here is that Domino turned into Red She-Hulk. Now again, this is Jeff Loeb throwing out misdirection. This is one of the reasons why Jeff Loeb was so good at holding the identity back. Because remember, when it came to this, we didn't know who Red She-Hulk was when she first popped up. We didn't know who she was. We know it's not Domino, but we didn't know who she was. And so it was like, man, like what in the world's going on? Like it was crazy to see all these things happening because it was like everyone's becoming a Hulk. Like everyone is a Hulk now. Not only that, we also have Wolverine trying to take out Red She-Hulk, but ultimately Punisher steps in. And so it just kind of becomes a situation where things are temporarily neutralized, if only for a moment. And Red She-Hulk basically grabs Red Hulk and they get out of there. Now, when they bail out, Deadpool and Thundra and Punisher are basically met by some guy and he says, hey, look, Red Hulk is dubious. All right, he uses deceit to get the things that he wants, but I keep my promises. If he told you he would give you something, he's probably not delivered, but what it is that you want, I will give to you. And so it was cool. It actually worked out kind of well. Not only that, we actually get this cool situation between Red She-Hulk and Red Hulk. Now, Jeff Loeb was walking a very fine line because again, he didn't want to give away the identities too much. And again, She-Hulk even asked the question, who's Red Hulk? But the important thing about this discussion between the two of them is that what Red She-Hulk basically says is, hey, look, you were hired by an organization, like you were created by an organization to carry out their goals. You went off the reservation. You got drunk with power. You realized that you were on par or believed you were on par with the Incredible Hulk, and your goal stopped being to work for the goals of this organization and instead to just take out Banner because you hated him so much. You went off the reservation, and now either they're going to curtail you back in or they're going to kill you. The other cool thing here is Red Hulk makes a reference to the $64,000 question. Now, this is not wildly important, but when I saw this, I felt like I had to say something about this. So there was a really, really cool movie back in 1994 called Quiz Show. And what that did is it dealt with like quiz shows back in the 1950s. Back in the mid 1950s, quiz shows were all the rage. I mean, you had like the $64,000 question. That was a show, but the big show was called 21. And that's the one that blew the top of it all. On this show 21, there was a guy named Herb Stemple, I think it was. He was like the reigning champion. Well, eventually he was beat out by a guy named Charles Van Doren. And then it came to light what 21 was doing is they were basically giving people the questions and answers before the show, and they were cheating the whole thing. And so because of this, it led to this huge congressional inquiry into quiz shows, like all of the quiz shows, you know, in the mid 1950s, and it changed regulations. The FCC stepped in and said, okay, fine, here's regulations on what shows can and can't do. And that's why things aren't like they used to be back in the 1950s with shows. And so I kind of felt like adding that in. I thought it would be kind of a cool little history moment here. But again, what we also have is Red She-Hulk. Even though she doesn't say what her identity is, she basically reveals that Red Hulk seems to be her dad. And so it's like, okay, how do these two correlate to one another? How do they relate to one another? How does it all come together? Now, for those of you guys who are familiar with Marvel Comics right now, you guys all know who the Red Hulk is. I'm not going to reveal it for the people who are still, pretty new here, but it is a pretty cool situation to see them coming back together. Not only that, we basically have Red Hulk's vision essentially coming back. And so when he asked the question, where am I at? Why did you bring me here? What's going on? We basically have a scenario where Deadpool, Punisher, Thundra, and Red She-Hulk have all basically turned against Red Hulk. Now, this was all effectively engineered by Doc Samson. And what we learned here was that the meeting at the beginning of the story between Doc Samson and whoever the Red Hulk is was engineered by Doc Samson in order to have Domino witness the entire situation so that Red Hulk would attack Domino, show that he's insane, that he's unstable, and then have Red Hulk killed. It was all set up by that because Doc Samson knew that they were going to give the list to Red Hulk, and then he was basically going to grab these guys whose loyalty could be bought. Doc Samson could come along, buy their loyalty for more money or whatever it is that they wanted, and then turn around and take them out. Now, for Red Hulk, when he basically said he was going to give Deadpool money, that he was going to give the Punisher information on criminals who were part of the witness protection program, this was all going to come after they had completed their goal. What Doc Samson did is he basically deposited $1 million in his Swiss bank account, and he gave the Punisher an encrypted drive that has the names of these people in the witness protection program. So he said, okay, here's 50% of what I said I would give you. You'll get all of it once the mission is complete, basically saying he'll give them the passwords for Deadpool to access the bank account, for Punisher to access the database after they've basically killed Red Hulk. Now, again, this is also kind of a cool thing because Leonard Samson, Doc Samson, is one of these guys that also gets carried away with his own intelligence, gets carried away with the fact that he is, in a sense, a Hulk. The difference between Doc Samson, for those of you guys who are asking this question, the difference between Doc Samson and the traditional Incredible Hulk, as we're used to seeing them, is basically hair. The stronger Doc Samson gets, the longer his hair gets. It's really one of those weird things. It was a way to try to differentiate him from the Incredible Hulk in the traditional sense. But Doc Samson is still a guy who gets carried away just like everybody else. And so it's essentially a situation where he believes he's holding all the pieces. He actually starts mocking Red Hulk, talking about playing a game of chess and so on and so forth. But Red Hulk steps in, and Red Hulk offers a situation where a king is basically checkmated by his own pawns. It's called back rank checkmate. Now, I wouldn't call myself a chess guru, but what I will say is that I've seen chess matches where pawns win games. Chess is a game that's designed to illustrate the fact that every piece has some measure of power, and no piece should be taken for granted. No piece should be taken as an absolute strength. For example, there are people who play chess and believe that the queen is the most powerful piece. But what happens if the queen gets taken off the board? How do you adapt? Honestly, I would take some rooks and bishops over a queen any day of the week. But it just illustrates the point that you're never holding all the pieces. You're never holding all the cards. This is illustrated when Thunder's loyalty basically cannot be bought. Now, again, we don't really know why yet. We're not really sure what arrangement Red Hulk had worked out with Thundra, but it's essentially a situation where her loyalty cannot be purchased here. Not only that, he also takes it against Red She-Hulk and is able to subdue her for a time. And so it's really just a situation where everybody's fighting everybody else, or at least the forces of Red Hulk are fighting against the forces of Doc Samson. And so again, it's just kind of this weird choosing sides sort of thing. The other half of this is that Red Hulk begins to comment and begins to offer this explanation on Banner. Now, this is why I say Jeff Loeb's writing of Red Hulk was really, really good, because he basically makes the case that Bruce Banner and the Incredible Hulk situation was intriguing because of the fact that in a lot of ways, when the truth came out that Banner was the Incredible Hulk, no one trusted him anymore. Nobody would hire him because they were like, well, we don't know if Banner's going to turn into the Hulk. We don't know if somebody's going to walk in and they're going to give him a cup of coffee that has too much sugar and he's going to lose his mind and Hulk out. They didn't know if that was the case. Not only that, his name was basically tainted. And so nobody would bring him in. Because of this, with the Incredible Hulk constantly being hunted, with Banner constantly being hunted because he was the Incredible Hulk, the only thing Banner could do was be the Incredible Hulk. And it created a life of loneliness, not because he wanted to be lonely, but because he had to be, because it was the only way to keep himself alive. Not only that, the friends that he had, the members of the Avengers, feared him. The superhero friends that he had were afraid of him. And so it was a situation where the Red Hulk came to the realization that to be a Hulk means to be alone, because the people that you call allies will fear you and they will always try to kill you. And so this is cool because it's Red Hulk beginning to understand where the Incredible Hulk is coming from when he says he just wants to be left alone. It's not Banner just being violent. It's not Banner just lashing out. It's not him just being mad at the world and stomping around. It's him genuinely wanting to be left alone, but everybody chasing him. It's really like this circular thing. The Hulk wants to be left alone. People chase after him to keep him from being dangerous. Because they're chasing him, he has to defend himself. He becomes dangerous, and it just creates a vicious circle. If people would just leave him alone, he wouldn't be dangerous. And so it's really kind of a funny situation. But again, in the midst of all this, we have Red She-Hulk dealing with Red Hulk, and he actually essentially spares her life for a moment, but again, she turns against him and throws him off. Now, this is when things start to become a little more clear. This is when things become a little more important, and this is when we start getting into the prologue to Fall of Hulks. When Red Hulk is thrown from the top of this building, he's basically met by Electra, and Electra essentially says, we need to go find Domino. You've been wasting time. You've just been sitting here fighting. You've been letting your anger get the best of you. If what you want to do is find Domino, then find Domino. And so what happens is Electra takes him to Silver Sable. Now again, Silver Sable is the character who's kind of like the broker of information. So where Night Nurse is the nurse that tends to all the superheroes that have masks, Silver Sable is the one that gives people the information that they need. Now it costs money. It's not free. You have to pay Silver Sable for the information that she wants. But if it's going on, she knows about it. There's nothing that's going on in the criminal underworld that she doesn't know about. And if there is an instance where she doesn't know about it, she knows the people who do. And so because of this, she's one of the most important people. It's one of the reasons why no one kills Silver Sable, because she's too important to let go. She's made herself too integral. I mean, governments go to Silver Sable. Superhero organizations go to Silver Sable. Criminals go to Silver Sable. Everyone, she's like the J. Edgar Hoover of the Marvel Universe. Everyone goes to Silver Sable. And so what ends up happening here is this is where Red Hulk really begins to learn that this was all basically set up, that the organization that he works for essentially wants him dead. And so what he says is, okay, look, if this is the case, if they want me dead, then what I need to do is effectively take them out first. Like I need to get to them and deal with them so I don't have to worry about this anymore. And so what happens is he and Electra basically have this sort of sit down, not a direct, sit down, talk about their problems and have tea, although it would be cool to see that. It's really just where Electra says, look, you have everybody, you have the world against you right now. The organization you work for is trying to kill you. The superhero community wants you dead because you basically defeated Thor and you just started cutting a rampage throughout the Marvel Universe, attacking Silver Surfer and taking his powers. You have no real allies here except for the guys who are working for you right now. And so what she says is, you need to make good on your oath. And she's right here. She's like, the last thing you need to do right now is screw over the few people that are actually working for you. And so she's like, go to Deadpool and pay him. Even if you can't pay him everything, pay him something. Give him a reason to stay loyal. Go to Punisher and give him a reason to stay loyal. Go to these guys and make sure that in some form or fashion, you live up to your oath. If you do that, I will be on your side. Now, here's the deal. It would be easy for us as the reader to say, oh, wow, well, he's going to have Electra on his side. Woo-hoo. That's actually really important. It's extremely important that he has Electra on his side. And the reason for that is because Electra is tied into a lot of things. Not only that, Electra is very hard to kill. Electra is the best assassin in the Marvel Universe. If you want someone dead, well, I don't know, maybe Gamora's a little bit better, but if you want someone dead, Electra will kill them. That's just how it is. If Red Hulk goes to her and says, I want that person dead, they will die. It may take days, it may take weeks, but they will die. Electra will make sure that they die. She is one of the best people to have in the corner. Not only that, again, her ties to the criminal underworld, her ties to the Hand are some of the most important allies that Red Hulk could ever have. Now, the other thing though for Electra is she says, I'm not gonna ask you for money. What I'm gonna ask for is your allegiance. Because to be able to say that I have one of the strongest people, really the strongest one there is, now that again, Bruce Banner's depowered, is an invaluable asset. So they both have something that the other one needs. They both have the ability to pull out extremely valuable assets to their cause. And so ultimately, we have Red Hulk basically doing this. He goes to Crimson Dynamo, gives him some Tony Stark upgrades. He goes to Deadpool, says, hey, here's $100 grand. I know it's not $1 billion, but it's $100 grand. And Deadpool's like, hey man, I'm crazy. I don't really care. Money's money as far as I'm concerned. Having $100,000 now is $100,000 more dollars than I had yesterday. And so it kind of works out. Of course, he goes to the Punisher and says, hey, look, I know I told you I would give you access to people who were part of the Witness Protection Program. I can't give you that, but here is the address to a weapon cache that belongs to S.H.I.E.L.D. So you can either stick with your conventional weapons or you can use some S.H.I.E.L.D. weapons and you can really set some shit on fire. And so it's really, just kind of ending with him and Thundra sitting down at what used to be, or what is now, this Advanced Idea Mechanics hideout, and essentially saying, we're going to take this war to the organization that he works for. And so what this does is this leads into Fall of Hulks. And this is when we'll start getting into intelligentsia and different things like that. And so in the next video, what we'll probably do is cover the Fall of Hulks prelude for Red Hulk, because there's a few of these. I think there's one for each Incredible Hulk title, and then that goes into Fall of Hulks itself. But if you guys are new here to Comics Explained and you guys enjoy this video, make sure you hit the sub button to become part of the Rob Corps. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you drop a like, and yeah, Super Saiyan, I can't remember what your name is now. Don't forget to send me that message on YouTube. And yeah, I will catch you all later. Peace.